Eric Nicol has been landing on people's doorsteps in Vancouver as part of the Vancouver province since the 1940s. When I was a kid growing up here in the 60s, Eric Nicol was the only writer who was a household name. He's won the Stephen Leacock Medal for Humour 3 times, he's written more than 10 plays, and he's produced more than 30 books, and he remains one of Vancouver's greatest literary treasures. I'd now like to invite Mayor Owen and Eric Nicol to unveil the plaque. Mayor Owen.
Thank you very much, Alan. It's a pleasure to be here to honor Eric Nicol. Those of us that have spent a lot of years in Vancouver do remember things that he did years and years ago. He's a multi-talented, great citizen of this part of the world. And Eric, it's an honor to be here. And we wish you well. This is the very first of the author's plaques that are going on this plaza. Congratulations.
What is entailed in you winning the Lifetime Achievement Award sponsored by BC Gas?
I really don't know. Once again, I'm astounded. I don't know what the criteria were for that. I guess it's it just means that a fair number of people have been reading my stuff for a good many years, and some of a reasonable majority have found the stuff funny.
I did not enjoy World War II. It was a mother lode of humor material, but I never resolved the conflict between me and the airplane. The only piece of equipment I became familiar with was the funnel to be sick in. I was airsick over most of Western Canada. Just looking at one of these old Mitchell bombers brings a lump to my throat. Breakfast.
Do you think it's becoming increasingly hard to be a funny man in the 1980s and 1990s?
I think so. I don't envy those who are just starting out. There are a great many taboos, more taboos than when I was writing, in terms of subject matter, although there are fewer taboos in the matter of language.
Right. In fact, there is a great deal of coarseness in the so-called humor of a lot of stand-up comedians nowadays. So it's interesting that on one hand we have more freedom, but you're saying as well there are also more restrictions. What are some of the restrictions that you feel are moving in on the territory of the humorist?
Well, a lot of them are fairly legitimate restrictions. I mean, ethnic humor, gender humor. Those things, those are big sources of humor at one time. It seems to be much easier to offend people today than it did when I was first starting writing.
Eric Nicol went to the Vancouver Press Club to discuss humor with the province's present humor columnist, Shane McCune. Eric, you had a strange way of working. You used to, I believe, write in longhand at the office and then go back home and type up your columns. Is that correct?
No, I was very rarely at the newspaper office. I've worked at home for the whole time that I've been with the paper.
So the documentary that is of you 25 years ago is completely false, because it shows you anyway. So that's why I was asking that question. Just forget about it, and we'll just go with the visuals we've got.
I could take the elevator up to my office in the province building, but humor writing is like any other exercise of faith. One must first mortify the flesh. By the time I reach my floor, I am purged, ready for the occult rendezvous with inspiration. The name on the door is that of a former occupant. It provides a useful anonymity while discouraging those who might otherwise mistake this for the men's washroom. My office is austere, free of distraction. The coat hanger is of my own design. It symbolizes the tenuous strand by which the mantle of popularity is suspended. One day the string will snap and I shall plunge into a serious novel.
It was a setup where we'd have you actually went up the stairs to this little tiny office, and it was sort of like Walt Disney before he invented Mickey Mouse in his garret. You hung your coat on a makeshift hanger, and you had one little sandwich. You looked out it, and there was a seagull at the window, and it was a
really. I can't remember any of that. But
remember you put a little shovel of coal in the grate there and sharpened your quill?
I remember the peeling paint there and looking down on Victory Square with all the Doukhobor ladies naked. That was quite a scene in itself. That was a long time ago.
I write everything in longhand, in a scribbler. I need to feel through my fingers the physical sensation of words forming. To me, composing on the typewriter is like kissing through chicken wire, sensually incomplete. I do my typing at home in my den, hunt and peck method.
You used to work at home then when you were writing your columns. Was it difficult dealing?
I never thought of it as working at home. And that's the funny thing, I was playing at home because it's always been fun. I mean, if it's work, you may as well forget it because there are other avenues of employment that are going to be more pleasant. But it's always been play as far as I'm concerned.
My library is mostly reference books to which I refer assiduously, yet I manage to get a large proportion of my facts wrong. As a writer, my attitude to the truth is that I'd sooner be right than accurate.
Were you aware when you first started writing your province columns and News Herald's columns that you were evolving a style?
No, I was never conscious of that.
But are you conscious now that you have a style?
Not really. Not really. I guess other people would recognize it better than I would. I just write me, and I guess that's it.
Reading a humor magazine serves as a pacer or primer. Having laughed at humorists like Woodhouse and Ellis, I can turn to my own work with a freshened awareness of inadequacy.
Something that's consistent in your work is that you're very often the butt of the joke, your own joke.
Yes. Well, that's easy to do when you are the butt of the joke virtually all your life, and that's the way I felt. Minor disasters follow me around, so I've sort of made use of those more than anything else.
Is there something different between British humor, American humor, and Canadian humor?
I think so. I think the stereotypical American comic is the brash and confident smartass. Bob Hope is a smartass. David Letterman is a smartass. The overstatement seems to be the running theme of American humor. Understatement seems to be to me to be the running theme of British humor. In usual fashion, the Canadian is somewhere down the middle. It's very much I think self-deprecatory humor is the mean in Canada, in Canadian writing and in visual comedy as well.
Eric, do you miss the daily newspaper fray, and do you feel estranged from the newspaper scene and the humor scene?
Oh, I miss it. Yeah, I miss the exposure. We're all exhibitionists, aren't we? We can't afford no raincoats, so we write humor. I do miss it. But, I envy Shane in a way, because he has a big opportunity to use his talent. I don't envy him the atmosphere in which he has to work, because I feel it's a lot more restrictive than in my time. What is a curse, I think, for a humorist like Shane getting starting in his career, is the editorial committee. That is, I've done a lot of shameful things in my life, but I've never been part of a consensus. And consensual editing is what is really you're talking about, that you have a group of people that you have to satisfy that something is funny. My whole career was based on the fact of having one editor who didn't have any sense of humor whatsoever. So they had no index as to what was supposed to be funny and what wasn't. So it was pretty easy to get it past him, and once past him, I was in the paper. Now Shane, I think, would confirm that he now has to buck a whole committee, is that right? Or that sort of thing?
The hoops I have to jump through are those concerning politically correct language and references. That is to say, if for some reason my gag turned on a description of a fisherman we still use at the province, but a chairman or something like that, it wouldn't fly, because even the column has to adhere to the style guide, which...
What do you do when you have to write, the chair took the chair?
Well,
that's what...
I table that.
Good.
People often ask me where I get the ideas for columns. I may as well admit right here, my wife has a very funny butcher. This solves the problem with source material, but it means that most of my pay goes for meat. We're the only family in our neighborhood that eats veal cutlets for dessert.
Have you ever written something which has offended your readers?
Oh yes, lots of times. And they wrote bristling letters to the editor, which were published, which was fine with me. Everybody has his say. My credo has always been never explain, never complain. Let them have their innings. That's what makes the ball game fun. I've had columns killed because of bad taste, and I've accepted that. Okay. I tried to get away with it. I didn't, and we'll go on to the next thing.
I can't relax in company. The humorist that goes to a cocktail party, any kind of party, is expected to say something funny, and I am as funny as a crutch. Also, there is usually the female drunk who wants to challenge you to a verbal duel, hand-tooled puns at 2 paces. Chit-chat chills me as a terrifying waste of time. I think I could enjoy a good orgy if the rules were explained to me, but the more verbal gathering gets my goat. So as social activity, I play badminton. It doesn't relax me, but it is a different variety of tension. It permits me to discharge aggressive tendencies without risking more than a mouth filled with feathers.
You once described yourself as having politics which were anarchist in theory but liberal in practice.
Yes.
It sounds like from your experiences early on in life you developed an antipathy to government and authority.
I think mostly because school experience is still a sense of injustice. I once got the strap in about grade 1. I really got it heavily. I mean, the principal was a sadist. And I was really put off by that, that authority figure of the principal who, I could see he was enjoying watching my hand swell up.
So when you write a column which is humorous, in some respects you are warning us against that principle with the strap.
Any kind of authority that isn't justified, yes, I think that's a worthy target for anybody. I'm a devout determinist. That's my religion. I don't know whether you've spent much time thinking about determinism, Alan, but it's not the same thing as fatalism. But what it does say and mean is that really what we are and what we achieve is a matter of luck. It's basically luck. It's our genes, it's our home environment, it's our education that we're lucky enough to get, it's the events of the world that we're able to duck or otherwise, and we end up as what we can do. And I don't see any reason for having pride in anything. Pride to me is a ridiculous thing to have, because it's all fortuitous. So it's not fatalism, the chances are there, but it's all chance. So immediately determinism eliminates pride and it's very easy to be self-effacing when you know it's all luck.
That is a very clear philosophy.
Well, it eliminates an awful lot of things. You don't become judgmental about other people. You become analytical about other people in terms of why are they like that.
Your explication of determinism as a philosophy may seem like we're getting into deep waters, but possibly a lot of humorists also feel the same way.
I think so. It's pretty hard to be a stuffed shirt and be a humorist as well. And a stuffed shirt is really somebody who is making presumptions about himself and what he's achieving and what he has achieved. And I see it as kind of ridiculous.
When you wrote A History of Vancouver, in some ways that's a true reflection of your deep affinity for this place.
Yes.
You had opportunities to go and work elsewhere and even live elsewhere, California, England, and yet you've chosen to remain in this part of the world.
Yes.
Do you feel a very special loyalty to Vancouver as a place?
Yes, yes. I've always loved this city, and I've always enjoyed even this part of the city. I've lived in the Dunbar Point Grey area from the 1920s. And no, it's been the wilderness feeling of Vancouver that appeals to me. I'm sort of a nature person, and I enjoy being next to the park, Pacific Spirit Park, and just enjoying the whole atmosphere here.
I love a broad margin to my life, wrote Thoreau. This is what I like about Canada, the broad margin of wilderness, like this swamp. Only a few blocks from my house, but I played here as a boy.
But the middle of the swamp remained the unknown, the sinister. Not until I was about 9 did I follow some adventurous companions along one of the spongy, twisting paths that led to the heart of the swamp. I was scared. The runt pines were just big enough to conceal a scaly beast. The path was potholed with black, sucking pits of water that my companions announced to be bottomless. I felt the perspiring terror of the cowboy who realizes that the 6-shooter on his hip will just sink him that much faster to China. Then there it was, the round brown eye of the swamp, the dead and deadly center, a few water lilies dappling the scum, a half-sunken raft, a rim of ooze that my friends informed me was quicksand. I have never been so light on my feet before or since as I was that day in the swamp, suspended like a dragonfly inches above the ground by sheer beating of the wings of fear.
You also wrote a very significant history book on Vancouver, and that book is still, I believe, in circulation today. That was in 1970. It was simply called Vancouver.
Yes.
What made you write a history book about Vancouver?
Well, I was invited to by the editor-publisher, Doug Gibson, who had read some of my work, and I thought I could perhaps do a history that was readable as well as, you know, a history. So I did so. It was the first time I'd gone to work, really, as a writer. It involved research, which it's an ugly word that meant hours and hours of looking at microfilm. But I'm glad I did it because it seems to have been informative and reasonably readable for a good many people since.
Of your 31 books so far, possibly that book is still going to be read longer than many of the others.
Well, that's very likely. I don't know. It's hard to judge these things. Humor does change with time, and I don't think I've written anything that's imperishable.
Do you sometimes regret the obvious changes that you see happening in the city around you?
Yes, it does, because I think we've lost a bit of our character. But mind you, that character was rather special and pretty British.
Do you see that as well in our manners and also, I suppose, in our writing and our humor?
Well, certainly in our manners, because Vancouver used to be a very polite city. You know, they'd wait for a pedestrian to go across the street rather than wait till he crosses the street. It's not as mannerly a city as it was when I was a kid. That's true.
When you describe yourself as an Anglo, do you find yourself realizing that the English are now just one more of the many minority groups in British Columbia, and as Peter Newman says, roast beef is now an ethnic dish?
Right. Well, that's very true. It's yeah, we're certainly becoming a minority. We're gradually being pushed out to the periphery of the city, I think, which is all right. But no, there is a dynamism in cities, and I don't think there's any point in trying to fight it. I think Vancouver will always be, I hope it'll always be, a pictorially beautiful city. I think that people have enough sense to save Stanley Park and to save at least part of the mountains in the North Shore and with a few trees on them. I think that there is that feeling, and even those who are newcomers become imbued with it. I hope so. I think it could be there.
And now the mayor of Vancouver is going to come and help you inscribe your signature in the cement at the new Library Square building, and there are going to be literally millions of people seeing that in the years to come.
And I'm still thinking it's a gag on somebody's part.
And so you will be the first BC writer to have their name inscribed on this walkway.
Yes, I was going to say probably the first person to get laid in the new public library, but I don't know whether I should say that. I never expected to be part of a walk of fame. A walk of ill fame, I thought perhaps down the way here might be a little more likely. But anyway, on that note, I understand that the most heavily borrowed book in the library is Madonna's Sex. There's something like a waiting list of something like 1,100 people waiting for sex. To me, that represents a tremendous challenge to our BC authors, not me, but other authors. And I think they can only be encouraged by this very tangible encouragement from BC Gas with the award. And I hope they can go on to create the mother of all waiting lists. Anyway, thank you very much for the honor of this plaque. I'm eagerly awaiting my first wad of bubble gum. And hope you'll go on to enjoy the library. Thank you very much. You originally said that it was going to be my handprint in the cement. And I was thinking, well, it would be fun to put only the middle finger here. It's a sort of a farewell gesture to life. But
I don't think that would be, is that really how you feel about life?
well, it fits in with the derision, I guess, of being a humorist. The full handprint, I think, is a little bit pretentious.
What do you mean when you say there is a derision about life entailed in being a humorist?
Well, it is a bit of a send-up, or it should be, particularly of wrong ideas, of stuffy ideas. If there's been a social purpose in what I've been doing, I hope it's that of instilling skepticism in people. And that is about politics or vogue ideas or accepted ideas. I've always been sort of a rebel in that way. I've never been a rebel in my personal life, but I've been a rebel in the idea of the intellectual life.